Welcome back to the program. Frank Roche, Hot Topics. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Like the videos, tell your friends and family. Click the bell for notifications, all that stuff. We have some inflation data out today. The 10th of October, Consumer Price Index for the month of September was released this morning at 8:30 a.m. by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We get the change in the index, which is the inflation rate, and the index itself, of course. The index, the CPI index, the Consumer Price Index, as at all-time highs. In February 2021, just when the Biden-Harris team took over, the index was at 263.58. By September 2024, it rallied to 314.68, all-time high. That's an increase in the price level of 19.3% since Biden-Harris took over the White House in January of 2021. A record. During Trump's 4 years, the CPI index rose from 244 in February 2017 to 262.5 in January 2021. That's an increase of the price level of just 7.6%. The rate of change in the CPI index is the inflation rate. For September 2024, the price level rose 0.2% from August and up 2.4% since September of 2023. So more inflation. That's the legacy of the Biden-Harris administration, which Kamala has embraced and said so on The View this week. When asked by the ladies on The View what she would do different from Biden, she said nothing. Shelter and food were the big drivers of inflation in September, with shelter up 0.2% month over month and food up 0.4% month over month, two of America's most basic needs, of course. And you ask the question, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? No is the answer for the vast majority of Americans, and no comes from the rapid and large increase in the price level that we're all suffering under. Excluding the volatile sectors of food and energy, the so-called core CPI rose 0.3% in September. It would have been worse were it not for a slowdown in China and the US, which allowed energy prices to fall from August to September. That drop in energy prices has been reversed, though, as we move into October, as the conflict in the Middle East between Israel and Iran via their proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthi rebels, finally impacts oil markets. Transportation had the biggest jump to the upside, rising 1.4% in September and 8.5% year over year. This is more confirmation the FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee from the Fed, was wrong to cut 50 basis points in September meeting. Too far, too fast. I tried to warn Chair Powell, he wouldn't listen. We have an ongoing inflation problem, and CPI reveals that today. Markets did not react well to it, although we remain near all-time highs in the S&P 500. Dollar rallied a bit. Interest rates on the 10-year bond back near 4%. All right, let's check in on Tim Walz and Kamala Harris a little bit. Tim Walz is at it again. He has called for the end of the Electoral College. At a fundraiser in California, it was leaked. He had this to say: I think all of us know the Electoral College needs to go. We need a national popular vote. Quickly, the Harris campaign has denied that it's part of the Harris platform. What an idiot. The Electoral College is one of the most genius parts of the U.S. Constitution. The founding fathers knew the risk of mob rule that comes from a plain and simple democracy run by a simple majority. What's more, this is more evidence of the gaslighting by the Democrats and Harris Walz. They repeatedly claim Trump is a threat to the Constitution. They cite his 2022 comments about his belief the 2020 election was stolen, where he posted on True Social, "Do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner? Or do we have a new election? Question mark. A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution." Democrats have interpreted this as him calling for the end of the Constitution or the suspension of the Constitution. He didn't say that. He was referring to the process of voting. Hyperbole, to be sure, something he should not have said, something stupid, of course, and again reveals his inability to get past the 2020 outcome. Even so, it is the Democrats who are going after the Constitution. Tim Walz on the Electoral College, that's a huge part of the Constitution. The desire of Democrats to pack the Supreme Court, which means to increase the number of judges, which they mean by that, Democrat-leaning judges. 10, the filibuster in the Senate, just some of the examples of their desire to weaken, water down the Constitution. The Electoral College levels the playing field for small states. Now, the argument by the Democrats is that the popular vote has been won a few times by Democrats, although they didn't win the presidency. And their belief that the popular vote should be all that matters. It's not quite accurate. In 2000, Bush won the Electoral College but lost the popular vote to Al Gore. In 2004, Bush won the Electoral College and the popular vote. In 2008, Obama won the Electoral College and the popular vote. In 2012, Obama won the Electoral College and the popular vote. In 2016, Donald Trump won the Electoral College but lost the popular vote to Hillary Clinton. And in 2020, Biden won the Electoral College and won the popular vote. And while we're here, let us remind ourselves we are not a democracy. Democrats use that term in reference to January 6, 2021, and to dilute what we are truly a constitutional republic characterized by three branches of government and checks and balances. We are also not a Democrat republic. The Electoral College must stay. Without the Electoral College, most states' votes would become meaningless. A handful of states would decide every election, and that means Dem control in every cycle. Just think California, New York, and Illinois, just for starters. Anyway, the case is easier to make that the Dems are a threat to the Constitution rather than Trump, and Tim Walz's comments on the Electoral College helps that case. Keeping with Tim Walz, he and Kamala's husband, Doug, visited a coffee shop in Phoenix, Arizona, Otro Cafe. Second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, and Governor Tim Walz walked away from the counter at the cafe without paying. Walz's daughters revealed quickly to the cashier, someone will be up to pay, don't worry, as the two men walked away with their coffee and food. Video footage posted on X appeared to show the two men walking away from the counter after Walz's daughter tells them she will wait for the tea and informs a worker behind the counter that a campaign staffer is coming to the counter to pay. She kept repeating that, someone will be here to pay, alerting the cashier, even though Tim and Doug walked away. But those guys can't buy their own coffee? What, no money? Huh? Doug was a lawyer. Tim's a pensioner. Tim's a governor. So the idea is these two guys are just like you and me. These are the new men, the new masculinity, the new middle class. They take their food without paying. They have an assistant pay for them. Tim Walz is probably used to this. He's been on the taxpayer dole for pretty much his whole career, right? As teacher, as House rep, as governor, as a member of the National Guard. He's been getting paid by the taxpayer forever. He's used to someone else paying. It's very embarrassing to leave the restaurant without paying. Not a very middle class thing. Not a good look. That's what their life is like. The elected class, the political class. All right, lastly, checking on Kamala's media blitz this week. 60 Minutes, the Call Her Daddy podcast, Howard Stern, The View, and Stephen Colbert. Holy cow. Could you find a more friendly group of people to talk to in the media? The only challenging questions came from 60 Minutes, and she didn't do well. And it was pre-taped and apparently edited out the word salad she's known for. Appearing on the Call Her Daddy podcast and talk about abortion and sex, unusual. She was not very presidential, didn't have any hard-hitting questions. Take a few minutes and go check out the typical content on that podcast. A little off color. She met with Howard Stern, who used to be, the anti-establishment guy. Now he's completely woke liberal, completely committed to the Democrat cause. I think that one of the first questions he asked her was, do you now? Then he wanted to say, to protect her from SNL, he didn't like SNL making fun of her, and that making fun of her should stop. She's a Democrat nominee. No one should be made fun of. My God. The View, her appearance on The View was just a puff appearance. Softballs everywhere. Let's feel the vibes was the theme. Though when asked what she would do differently than Biden the past 4 years, she said nothing, implying she fully embraces everything that's been the past 4 years, including apparently the inflationary problem they both caused. Stephen Colbert was vibes thing again and drinking beer. She didn't get any boost from this blitz. She didn't earn any votes, that's for sure. No independents or Republicans changed their mind, that's for sure. She may have solidified her progressive voters. It's time for a wide-ranging press conference or 2 or 3 or 4 by Kamala. She's going to have to stop hiding and only taking questions from friendly media in pre-taped interviews. Please, Kamala, come out and talk to us. Tell us the real details of what you think, what your policies are. Don't you want that too from your presidential candidate? I know you want to beat Trump. But don't you want to know what she's going to do? Don't you want to know what she's like under pressure with questions and having to make policy decisions on the fly? Just asking. Just asking. All right, that's all I have for you right now. Always started by American.